Oh, we're being recorded now too. Goodness gracious.
So our opportunity to get our cuss words out is now past.
Yeah, you know what? Success is just continuing to raise my kids and have a business that keeps the lights on and that I'm happy with and proud of. You know, similar to all the other people on this panel, we've gone through changes in our career, and it just continues to morph and evolve as the real estate industry does. So,
you know, it's interesting. You mind if I just ask a question? So, like, success to you is keeping the lights on, feeding the kids. How did you define it, please?
You know, when I first got into real estate, I came out of that corporate world, as you mentioned, and it was all about, you know, more. And you know, you see all these people say, you know, I used to chase more. I certainly still, I love my toys. I love my time. I love doing great things. But it truly has become more about being with kids and having more time at home, more playtime, and being able to, as you do, you know, I run a coaching business that's thriving on the back end, and I truly enjoy that. I love that piece of it and helping the growth in others, and that is sort of where a lot of my career energy and effort has driven in the last 48 months type thing. So,
yeah. Sounds like that this definition of success is missing one component, which I'm glad to hear, is it's missing the word ego. This isn't about doing 200 deals or perhaps a monetary amount necessarily, but it is truly about enriching your life.
You reach a point where after you've been doing it for long enough and the success has been there, that you can continue on it. The fundamentals are in place. And that's that key piece, is putting those fundamentals in to be able to build that lifestyle. And it's about having the time that's quality to us. And I reflect a lot at this age on, you know, as I said to my hairdresser, I'll admit it the other day, I said, you know, when you're closer to 70 than you are to 30, it starts to put some perspective on the world. And I'm not quite there yet in terms of that ratio. I'm about 6 months away from that ratio shifting, but it certainly has put, you know, a different light on the next 20 years and how I conduct those 20 years, for sure, in terms of success. And success means having fun, free time, spending it with people that I want to be around. So it's great.
Damn you, John Kemp, for putting that thought in my mind as you're closer to 70 as you will. Damn you, John Kemp.
Hey, I always leave a nugget for you.
Never have I ever thought about it that way. You. All right. Well, thank you for that definition. I appreciate it. And just to qualify, ego is an incredibly important part of your drive and your success. Like you should not be devoid of ego. It's an integral part of who we are. And driving for numbers and driving for whether it be numbers of sales or number of commission, those are very valuable markers, and they definitely are important on the journey. And I want to point out where John's at, and I feel like I might be as well too. We're at the tail end of the journey where success is defined more by the quality of the life than it is about how many deals we can do. And at one point, John, it would be fair to say we were driven by numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unadulterated, there's no question about it. Driven by, and I've never measured my business by the number of transactions I do. I was solely, and I still don't measure it that way. It's solely about the revenue that I generate for my business, and in my business. And because, you know, money can't buy happiness, but it certainly buys opportunities to build happiness. So
True enough. Thank you. All right. Well, Tanya, let's move over to you. Let's hear your thoughts on this topic.
What was the exact question?
There wasn't one. but if I was to reframe it, it would sound something like this. What does preparing for success look for you, and how do you even define success? I think probably go with how you even define success. And as we're talking about preparing for success, John pointed out, like, you're always in the mode of preparing for it. So just define success for you now. You're not a new realtor. So tell us how long you've been a realtor for. And does success look different today for you than it did when you were first in?
Yeah, I mean, I just renewed my license in October, so I'm in year 8.
Good Lord.
I think I'm year 8. And the first 2 years I struggled. I think people think you get your license and then you just automatically become incredible, and it's not like that. And then I worked with a really great team for a long time, and Kelly taught me a lot about setting myself up for a new year, and I'm forever grateful, and taught me about investing, which has been incredible. And those were years that accelerated how quickly I learned. For me, I think success is just the fact that I've been married 27 years today, and I have 3 amazing kids, and one starts nursing school for her second year. And I wake up happy every single day. And I've had some health problems this year, and I have the time and energy to promote to that, just the way I've set up my business now, and finding a real work-life balance, which was really important to me, and getting back and giving into the community, which is what gets me up in the morning.
Okay, well, wow, I'll unpack the heck out of that, but thank you for sharing both on the personal side, on the health side, and then also on the more philanthropic aspects of where you're heading. But we'll come back to that, Tanya. Thank you. Jason, do you want me to repeat the question, or have you got a grip on this one? You're muted also. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I have a grip on it. I think probably a blend of the previous 2 responses. I think, this is be my 10th year coming up here. And, I think when I got into the business initially, I was motivated by the idea of just being able to kind of work endlessly and, see the output and the results of what you put in, and not having that max, and kind of just head down and, not being kind of confined to a routine 9-to-5 day. And as time progresses and family evolves, you kind of reach a point where you go, geez, I really would like to work 9-to-5 again. so things shift, and then, you've kind of reached the plateau of understanding how to drive the revenue side, and then everything becomes more about how do you sustain that and just become more efficient, and really isolate the activities and the times that you need to make yourself available, and then automate everything else with great people and great systems. So for me, I think the emphasis moving into next year is just how to kind of continue to grow the business and the revenue in a way that your clients still perceive that you're as available to them, meanwhile freeing up time using efficiency models to be at home more, right? And I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it makes perfect sense. Like, and John talked about it, and obviously so did Tanya. Like, something switches in your careers where after you've hit a certain, I guess, number of years, maybe it might even be just level of success, where the drugs wear off on being available to your clients at all hours of the day is no longer nearly as exciting as it once was. Mm-hmm. And once sort of the drugs wear off and you're able to go, wait, I've missed a bit of a life along the way. How do I regain that, or how do I get that back? I mean, that might be the question, or it might just simply be that you end up having children. And then the reality that they grow fast, and before you know it, Tanya, your daughter's going into school. And I remember when she was born. I remember when she was in your belly.
You were one of the visitors for all of my kids at the hospital.
Yeah. So you want to talk about fast, and so it's important to I guess we contextualize success from the perspective of it isn't always about the numbers. It can also be equally as important to just get quality of life back in. And I always wonder, like, for agents, is there a defining moment where you go, okay, I feel like I figured out this machine that I know that in every given year, or in any given year, I'm going to earn a certain amount of money, and that amount of money is enough to keep the lights on, make the payments, the car payment, the gas, and the this and the that. I am now, for whatever reason, feeling called to put my focus and energy somewhere else, and yet still be a realtor and balance it. And then, of course, now you've got this discord of how do you change that? Did that ever happen for you, John?
I think the biggest piece for me on that side of it, Josh, is, I won't hide it. I went through a divorce, and there's different phases in life for sure. And financially, that took a big toll on me, coming out of the corporate world and coming out of that relationship, and getting into real estate was of a different vein where my earning potential was limitless. Absolutely. And the more you work, the more you are available. You know, I still use it periodically, not as much as I used to. You know, it's a part-time job. I work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And it takes people this twist in their head to start to recognize, oh my God, you work half a day every day. And real estate affords you the opportunity to make money from doing all of those different things. But as you start to put amass enough into that back kitty, you start to look at, okay, so what is true wealth? And where does true wealth come from in all the different veins of life and existence in terms of the timepiece, you know, the quality of leadership that you're giving to your family and your kids, and where your business is going. And yeah, you know, statistically, after you cap 90%, I think it's 90% of the people after they cap once will cap forever in the rest of their career. And that's certainly that piece of, as you attain and as I've attained these different levels in my business, it certainly builds more comfort. But I have to say, it never goes away. I'm only as good as my last deal. And if I close the doors tomorrow, I still have that fear that it just all disappears and evaporates. But, you know, Jason said, and he keyed on it a couple of times, that those fundamental systems, those efficiency pieces in the back end that allow you to keep churning, if you built those through the years and you started, and this is, I did a decent job at the beginning of my career, but that's what makes me so passionate about coaching now is, if I can help some people getting into this business do that now, and build those fundamental systems that allow that efficiency piece to come in, they won't have to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and have that part-time job in real estate. They can actually build that wealth that goes forward, where what is coming in is enough to continue forward, and you can push on the gas pedal when you want to, and you can back off when you don't. And you'll see those agents who have been successful and are successful in the business for years and years. When the business sort of slows down, a lot of them are in Hawaii, or they're in Mexico, or they're in these different places, and the business is still churning. If you look around at their social pieces, they're still transacting, but because they've got those efficiencies in place, it still continues to roll and do those things.
But shouldn't we feel guilty, John, that at those slower times in the market, we haven't doubled down and made more calls and knocked more doors? What the hell are we doing in Hawaii? Shouldn't we feel guilty about that, or should we actually embrace it? Like what?
Well, I think, you know what, if you spend enough time in social media, the algorithm will tell you you need to feel guilty, and you should be spending all of your time doing this stuff, and you will spiral down that rabbit hole, and it'll drive you crazy. And there are people who do it, and you know what, if I think that's what really fulfills you and makes you comfortable. And people talk about that work-life balance. It's a total farce. Work and balance are in life are completely different for every single individual person. I think that's the cool thing about what's happening in our evolution as a society, that recognizing now you can be a YouTuber and make $100,000 like that if you've got enough followers type thing. So it's, yeah, the guilt is there, but I'm definitely, I'm working on getting rid of it. I'll throw out there's that Catholic side of my family that keeps pushing that guilt on me, and it sticks with me in business as well. But I'm, again, working on it to get rid of it for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm over it now. I think I can be okay being away from real estate for a length of time. One of the things that I think you can really tell where a person's at in their career. And, you know, like, this is like, just to be really clear, there's zero judgment around this comment I'm about to make. It's just, you can really tell where a person's at in their career by the types of posts they're putting out there. So if it's the sales that they're doing and the numbers they're doing, you know, they're still in that phase of life where they're really, success is very important, right? And then if you see people like Andy Wallace, I love Andy's posts where he shows his backyard. Now he's reshaped it and it's an oasis. You now know that a person's probably moved more towards the significance aspect of life. So it's not about driving for numbers and success. You probably have got to a point where you've mastered it and you have a degree of comfort that you know it's going to come every year. And now I want more significance in life. Colin Thorne's posting, you know, I mean, I miss the fact the days when he used to Jack Daniel's whiskey his steak, but those were good days. I bought those from him. That's a man talking about, you know, something that really drives him up in passion. And he has a mix of both, obviously, but it's nice to see that there's a passion in him. And that's, I think, also what makes us realtor. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Tanya? You're moving now into a more philanthropic aspect. You've been in the business for 8 years. In 8 years, were you out of the gate that way? Were you perhaps maybe a bit more driven for sales and numbers, and then grew into it?
I think my story might be a little different than some, which I think a lot of people in real estate, we don't have the same set path that people have in careers usually. I got married really young. I was 19 and had my first baby at 22 or something.
An arranged marriage, Tanya?
Yeah. No, but it's worked out. So yay. And my first baby was born with severe special needs. And that took us for a huge loop. I was a special needs teacher assistant, ironically enough. And Greg was a heavy duty mechanic. And all of a sudden our life just came to a screeching halt because we had this really sick baby. And so I did what it took, and I started bartending, and I would nurse her in the parking lot at night. And Greg got into IT so he could work at home to be home with them. And so our life took a real pivot because we both took career changes. And I mean, you and I have been friends a long time. I was always interested in real estate, but I never saw it as like something for me. And then when I was really sick of bartending, I called you up and I'm like, I'm kind of thinking about doing real estate. And you were like, you should have done it years ago. But with 3 little kids, it wasn't an option for us. And I got into real estate and really struggled the first 2 years. But my husband was incredible. And my money was kind of always our play money. And we've always made really good financial choices with real estate. And so then this is really, the last 2 years have been my most successful years. And this year I just really focused on what I loved, and what I love is people. So I went back to the beginning of what I love, and I work with a lot of RCMP, which they're very private. So I don't do a ton of posting on social media because you can't. And I do a lot for rescue and fostering for dogs. And through that love, I just keep getting referrals. And it's an amazing feeling. And we've just had great work-life balance. We're leaving in like 19 days and we're going back to Mexico for 3 weeks. And I know that my clients are there when I get back.
Tanya, I love that. That was beautiful. That was beautifully said. Would you say in the beginning you drove more by door knocking and numbers, and now you're actually you're hanging out in an area that lights you up? It's more passion. It gives you more passion and meaning to life. Would you say that's accurate?
I think that's 100%. When I first started, I think you fall into that term of commission breath, where everybody you see, you're just praying to God they work with you because you want the paycheck and you're trying to explain to people how amazing you are, and you drive this big fancy car, and that's just what people think realtors are. And I kind of come from a different world where I work with a lot of kids with special needs and dogs that have been beaten on the street. And so and then when I worked on the Kelly Fry team, it was incredible. And Kelly had such a drive to success. And I guarantee that that's a lot of why I'm doing so well now. But I miss that part of the people that I love. And so when I left the team, I was terrified. And I just went back to what I know. And it was networking with the networking groups that I'm in, but they're true networking groups. They're not ones where people are just, what's in it for me? They're, how can I help you? And back with the rescue group, I'm getting business from that. And it's just been all really authentic business. And my husband wants to retire now. God bless, help me. So we're looking.
Yeah, what hobbies Greg will find himself in.
Oh, so we're looking at some other, financial decisions so that we can live part-time here and part-time in Mexico, and know that the business is still coming in. And for me, it's never been about the paychecks. I know that everybody says that it's not about the money. But for me, when I look at how well my kids are doing, that is a reflection on me.
The interesting secret sauce there, I think maybe the greatest secret of real estate is that a person can build an incredible business and a very stable business if they focus in their sweet spots. If they can I know we all start off going, okay, let's door knock, let's cold call, let's drum up business, because I really have nothing. So you're trying to create something to a degree from nothing, but yet it's like the book Acres of Diamonds. The real value was in your own backyard. It's in the areas of interest. And if you were hanging out there and not self-promotion, none of that nonsense, they'll know you're a bloody realtor. You don't need to tell them. Trust me, they know. So if you can show up as a human being and they start to connect with you on that level, then the referral business comes to you in a way that it sure shit isn't going to happen from knocking on doors and cold calling. Would that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. That was me. I mean, I'm not the person who does well phoning people off the street. I'm much more meet someone in a coffee shop, and next thing I know, we're best friends. And that's just kind of how I am. And
Yeah, definitely you.
and I kind of lost that part of me. And then I'm having some medical issues the last year and a half. And I realized that if I don't slow down, I am not going to be good to anybody if I don't look after myself first. And I think sometimes we forget to, another big part of the puzzle is how you treat other realtors. And I have been so lucky that I have made the most amazing relationships with other realtors. I do a ton of assignments because of being on the team. I had done a bunch, and I would say 98% of them didn't know how to do assignments. But instead of just saying, take it to your managing broker and figure it out, I spent the 10 minutes and I worked with them and taught them how to do it. And it's interesting because I'm getting referrals from those agents now. So I think sometimes people have this ego that they're the listing agent and, bow to me, especially in this market. But we forget that in another market, those relationships are more important than even our relationships with our clients.
That might not make them a bad agent necessarily. It's just an indication of where they're at in sort of the phase of a real estate career. But they'll reach a point when the tide changes and they go, oh boy, I feel like I need people more than I thought I did. They're a little nicer. So. Jay, let's hear from you on this.
Oh, I just want to say that to Mark and Tanya, those are both really great bits. I appreciate what you guys have to share. That's really nice. I think I'm at a funny place right now, in all honesty. I'm in a place where I know that I can't continue to sustain the level of energy that I'm allocating to my work life. I'm aware of it, but there's still that huge part of me that's really unable to let go of the numbers and the success side, and not in a sense of, trying to, I guess, compare myself to the agents around us, but I've just always been super fueled by, the idea of overcoming challenge. And so that's something that's created a lot of benefit for me in my life. But at the same time, I don't really have a sense of balance in any capacity. It's either on or off. So I see, and my family can see, when the burnout's coming, like it's just this kind of perpetual up and down. And so it's interesting for me right now because it's so obvious to me, like, okay, I really need to take a step back more. And I know how to, but it's like, I'm scared to, because it's my baby, and I feel like in the beginning, when you talk about door knocking and cold calling, like I was absolutely relentless for a long time. And, I look back and I'm proud of those things, but I could honestly say, like, I could never do what I did, 10 to 5 years ago. If I had to, I probably could never go back and do those things again. Like I just wouldn't have the energy to. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's really just about identifying what matters to you and structuring your life around that. I could say that for a long time, my work and the career side was my life, and you definitely lose touch of the like you are a person outside of that. That's just like your identity, your self-identity, I guess. So then you realize, okay, wait a minute, like I have no hobbies left, and what do I actually want to do for my time? And then you become so used to living in a position of like fueled by stress and pressure that becomes, for me, it became my comfort zone. And then the idea of actually not feeling guilty on your time off and, re-establishing things that you do for yourself out of joy or passion, that's actually a place of uncomfort because you've lost touch with it. If that, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
so I'm kind of warily trying to go, okay, well, how do I, continue to be honest with myself and say, like, I do love succeeding and I love overcoming challenge and achieving, being productive, all of those things, but then still kind of reestablish a sense of comfort in the other side of my life, which really ultimately is the most important side, which you tend to neglect as a result of getting to where you are now, right?
Do you not
For me-
think it's weird? Oh, go ahead, Tanya. Go ahead.
So for me, I hate that aha moment, but my brother died 3 years ago. And he was super successful. And his funeral, it was like 600 people or something crazy. Not one person talked about the financial part of it. Not one person said he was so good at business. It was all the other things that made him who he was. And I think sometimes we forget that part. And if you look at realtors as a whole, divorce is really high, sickness is really high because we are such overachievers and we're such A-type personalities. But when he died, it was kind of like, really, what is my priority? If I was to die right now, what would people know me for? That my numbers are super high? Or are they going to remember that I loved hard or that I raised great kids? So I think they say that there's always a moment where things pivot for you, and that was it for me. And his company collapsed. The company's no there. And he spent 10 years building that company. It was everything for him. His marriage was falling apart. Some people knew him from the brokerage. They were at the funeral. No one mentioned that. And I think sometimes we don't talk about that side of it. So if you're a new realtor, sorry for crying, because anybody who knows me knows that's how I am. But I think that's the part that we have to focus on, those parts. When we die and they have our gravestone, or you're in a little jar sitting on your shelf or wearing around someone's neck, what are they going to remember you for? We get one life, right? So if we're not a good dad, or we're not a good partner, or we're not a good friend, or we don't give back to the community, people aren't going to remember, wow, they made 500,000 this year, or it doesn't make a difference. I hate to say it.
No one's going to give a shit.
Yeah.
And they're not going to talk about that at your funeral and your eulogy. That's not it. They remember how you made them feel.
Maybe a way to look at it is like, how do you harness your success and make it, be empowered by it to live the life that you want to live instead of be a prisoner of it, right? And so you go through, like, honestly, right now we're excessively busy, and from the outside it seems great, and I never lose touch of how fortunate I am and we are as a team and so forth. But definitely there's days where you feel locked down by that, and it's like overwhelming because you're like, okay, how did I get myself kind of boxed into this position, right? And you're trying to balance who you need to be for everyone else. And for me, it's like, all my energy goes to kids, wife, work, and then what's left for yourself, right? And so, funny enough, like to your point, Tanya, it's like, how do people remember you, but also like how do you want to live? And I guess in a sense, like, not even really think about what other people think about you at all, right? So, because, like, quite frankly, if you would have asked me this 4 years ago, all my passion was growing the business, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, if that's who you are and that's what makes you fulfilled, then all the power to you, right? I mean,
And your babies are small for such a short time. And like I say, and it sounds so funny because a lot of you have still really little ones, bless your hearts, because I don't have the energy, God. But mine are like 24 and Sydney's 20 and she's talking about moving out. And my baby is 15 and they don't need you after a while. And then you're left with you, and you have no hobbies, and you don't know who you are anymore as a person, because you're a mom and a dad and you're a partner and you're a realtor, but who are you? Like, what is your passion? What gets you up and your drive in the morning? And unfortunately, I'm with a really great group of women in business, and we talk a lot about that, about how all of a sudden you have this pivot where your kids are growing up and people divorce because they don't have anything for them anymore. So I really went this last 2 years and just discovered Tanya again. What is it that I love? What is it I want to do? And it's interesting that once I discovered that, my business started growing. And when I say I have total work-life balance, I am not kidding. I get up when I get up, usually 8:30. I'm in my office by 9. I work with the clients I want to work with, and I am the happiest I've ever been. So I think sometimes people tell you, you know, go out and do this, and this is what success is. But at the end of the day, when you die, what are you remembered for?
No, John, I don't want to leave you out unless you've got something you want to add. I've got some questions to ask.
I think just one comment, Joshy, that I think the biggest thing for me in the last, I'll put it back at 4 years, is that, you know, Jason's point in his career and Tanya's point and everybody on this call is a different point in their career. They're at a different point in their life. The realization for me, when we started a few years ago, we started taking Novembers off and we would go to Mexico for a month. And the realization for me that I was more stressed when I wasn't working than when I'm working. And that work was providing for me a relief of that stress. Mm-hmm. And recognizing for myself that, hey, you know what? That's okay. And where you are in your career, you know, Tanya's getting up at 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'll admit it, I do the same thing, but you know what, at the same time, it's okay because there's nights where you work until 11, 12 o'clock at night, and this is the lifestyle that you've chosen. But the key thing in that whole success realm for me is that I'm okay. I'm okay with me. This is what we're doing. And as long as I'm doing my best and I'm happy with the progress I'm making and measuring, you know, in the metrics that I want to, I'm okay with where we're going and how we're doing.
Yeah, you're A-okay.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
Could I chirp in a quick sec here?
Yes, Andy, please. I was waiting for this, by the way, Andy.
You know, obviously there's a lot of success here on this panel, and you know, I'm going into year 17, and it took me a long time to realize. I think everybody seems to have the same view, depending on where you are in your career. Just be aware that this is a business that can really affect you, even when you don't think it can affect you. You know, you can be driven into the success, you can driven into taking more time off, whatever it is. But, you know, I had 2 years ago, my body pretty much just shut down. I've had a lot of injuries in my life. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. When it came down to it, it was stress, and it was work-related stress. And it can be very powerful. So I think what everybody's saying here is, you know, you want to set yourself up for success, but be very aware that depending on what you're doing, it can affect you physically, emotionally, mentally, all the rest. And you just need to be aware of it. And if it's happening, do something about it. Don't wait, because it's this business can chew you up.
Andy, I think, Andy, that was beautiful. I want to share some personal, and Tanya, I want to touch on something that you mentioned as well too. Actually, all three of you, is that it will eat you up. Never mind can, I think it will. I think it actually will eat you up, especially if you are on a drive for success, which every realtor gets into this business to be successful. And so you follow a formula that was created by those before you, which is door knock, cold call, numbers, and go crazy. And of course, in the beginning, depending on your economic background, you might need the commission, you might need the money. And so in that pursuit, I'll speak to my own story and maybe it resonates with you. But I needed the money, man. I needed to pay gas. I was broke. So if I didn't make a check, I would go hungry, and I would eat food that wasn't mine at my office. I would eat the Mr. Cup of noodles. And so commission checks were important. And I was willing to sacrifice my own personal boundaries, whether it be staying up late, getting up early. It didn't really matter whether it meant going on a date, not going on a date, going out with friends, not going out with friends. It was all about the client. There was zero balance. And I agree, there is this sort of world around balance, but in the beginning, it was all about sacrifice. And then, like Jason said, you know, you get to a point, he's at 10 years in his career, you get to a point where you go, I want to reclaim some balance back. I think I've reached a modicum of success. I can to a degree go to autopilot now and bills will get paid. But how do I reclaim my boundaries? How do I get that back? And it almost feels weird. It feels strange, like you're asking some thing for permission to be you again and enjoy something as simple as sitting on your lawnmower tractor and cutting your freaking grass. And I'm saying with a little bit of perhaps anger and passion, because I got fucking mad when I was being interrupted cutting my grass, like mad that someone wanted me to go look at a house with them. And I thought, there's something wrong here, man. It's not the client, but there was something wrong overall with the picture. And then it was the first time, and Andy and I want to speak to what you said, but it was the first time this voice popped in my head, and I remember it to this day. I got goosebumps right now. And the question was, who's Josh Bath if he's no longer a realtor? Like, I really had my identity wrapped up in servitude and being something to somebody else, but I had no clue who I was or what was I even passionate about. And sure shit wasn't showing a house or let's create a plan to do 100 freaking deals. I didn't give a rip about that. And then, like Tanya, you talk about your health, right? If we don't suffer some version of health, we're going to have a divorce, Johnny, right? And I know what that's about because I just went through one. You're going to suffer health issues. And I know what that's about. I've got the onset of psoriasis. My hands split wide open and they bleed. Well, that's not normal. But that's an indication of perhaps taking on more stress than I should be taking on and not following the fundamental rule of my passion. And what the hell is that? Why not just hang out there? And Tanya, you said it well. You hang out in your passion. You don't need to worry about work. You'll end up with more than you can handle. And that's my thought on that. But how do you reclaim, Jason? I want to know from you, now that you're at this juncture in your career, like Andy said, how do you stop the wolves at bay, which, you know, metaphorically are your clients? Like you want them. And at the same time, you want to protect your boundaries so that if you happen to be on Maui, you're not worried about this going off and disrupting a dinner that you're having with Leanne. So I'm curious to hear from you what your thoughts on that, so I can tone my energy down a bit.
No, that's good. I think the two pillars that I would say are a point of emphasis for me right now is one, having a really good grip on the exact types of clients that you want to have in service. Mm-hmm. So the kind of the people that you're gonna call it, you know, sacrifice your personal time to on the client side, really just identifying like geographically, price point, personality of those people, and then just really allocate the time, your precious time that you have towards those types of clients. So you obviously have clients that you know, hit it off with, you become great friends with. You have other clients that maybe you don't even really like them personally, but they refer you people. You have clients that, you know, are totally happy to pay you 7 and 3, and you have clients that want to pay you nothing, right? So just really being mindful of, if I'm going to allocate this much percentage of my week towards my career, fortunately being at the 10-year point and having the business that, you know, we have currently, you are in a position to kind of manage that. And doesn't mean you have to say no to everything else, but, you know, I know I can't at this stage, you know, deliver bottles of wine at Christmas to every single client that I have, like I used to for 4 or 5 years. So, you know, just being mindful of, okay, who are the people that I really enjoy being around, and just tailor your business towards those types of clients so that your business mix is just as appealing and stress-free as possible. And then for me personally right now, over the last 2 years since my part with Rob, is just really, just aligning with really good team members and support, so that you obviously ties into just really enjoying the people that you work with each day, and just making sure that you have the right people to support the times that you can't be physically there. And you know, like, it's funny, I could probably talk a little bit about how our business and our team has evolved, because there's kind of these typical models for having a team, you know, where I would be the listing agent, and you have, you know, buyer's agents with very defined roles, and that system works really great for a lot of people. And, you know, Keller Williams probably swears by those models, but one of the things that
not anymore. No.
Yeah. Well, okay. So for me, I know, like in looking at myself, that I'm not a talented delegator leader. So I perceive myself as a glorified salesperson. I actually don't want to remove myself from the front line. And my goal is not to work, 4 hours a week and have clients calling and everything being taken care of by other people. Like, I really enjoy presenting offers. I love listing presentation. I love winning listings, all of those things. So I'm actually not trying to remove myself from those. I'm just trying to create an environment where that's all I do, and that everything else is at the support of the team, and the client experience is not negatively affected by that, right? And that goes for new clients, because it's easy to set the expectation of what new clients, they don't know any different. But even with previous clients that may have moved or bought, sold, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and experienced the full-time, 25-year-old Jay to the now 38-year-old Jay, it's just saying, okay, this is how it looks, and kind of trying to navigate not making them feel left out despite your inability to service them the same way you used to, right? So when, like, with the growth of our team, because I am not great and I don't have a lot of systems where I say, hey, okay, every Monday we meet and this is how many calls you have to make and this is how many deals that you're expected to make. We have a very kind of informal environment. So I know that the like, for example, to bring someone in, they have to already kind of have an existing experience in the business, maybe be at the point where they're at taking that step to, okay, do I need my own assistant or so forth? So then when they come in and work with me and with us, I don't have to spend any time like teaching them how to write contracts and just real fundamental stuff, because I can't provide that to them, and I can't provide us an environment with guaranteed leads and so forth. So instead, it's just about, what's worked really well is just having team members that are self-sufficient, and then the conversations we have are more high level, and different people on our team have different kind of general roles, but Caitlin was probably the only exception to that because of her experience in media and just what I perceived that she could do on her own with limited supervision. So but had I set out and just not been aware of that and tried to build a team, I would have burned myself out trying to train new people and just basically being someone who I'm not. So I have a very strong awareness of what I want and who I am and who I'm not as a leader, separate from a salesperson. And so my whole team is built around that so that it doesn't put me out of my comfort zone.
Jay, one of the dangers I found personally is in thinking you had to be a certain way, but no one ever talked about what that was for that person that you might have modeled. Like Colin, I modeled your father. Like, I idolized your father, and I would not have known what you shared just now in the chat group would have been something that he had went through. And I have no doubt it might have something to do with being in real estate and running at such a high level. You pay a price by playing that role. And we as realtors, especially the newer ones, because we don't really talk about this. There's a lot we don't talk about, but we don't know what price the successful realtors have paid, because we don't talk about that. All we see are their numbers. There's maybe the car or the house or the who knows what, but the price being paid and the stuff going on in behind the scenes in the mind, the mental talk, can be pretty revealing and maybe sobering to some degree. And I think it's important, Jay, like you said, you reach a point where you start to redefine who you are within the construct of your team. Assuming you have a team, maybe you don't have a team. I mean, Tanya, I don't know if you have a team or not, but you might.
I have a husband and I have 3 kids and I have an office dog. But I'm very fortunate that Mark, who used to be on Kelly's team too, him and I are family as far as I'm concerned. And we talk every day, much to his chagrin, I'm sure. And he looks after my business when I'm away and I look after his. One of the things, Jason, that you were saying that I thought was really powerful is with clients and how do you set your boundaries? And, I think the biggest thing I've learned in the last year and a half is I've become friends with my clients. So in that, They know my kids, they know my husband, they know my dog, they know where I live, they know what gets me up in bed in the morning. So when they want to go out on a Saturday, I say, you know, I would love to go look at that house, but if I say yes to you, I have to say no to going to Jack's hockey game. And they, oh, no, you know, don't say no to Jack. So I am not the bad person. I didn't say no, but because they're part of my world, I don't feel guilty anymore. So I use that line probably once a week where someone wants me to do something. Hey, Tanya, can you go pick up these rescue dogs and deliver them somewhere? Oh, I would love to do that. But if I do that, I have to say no to going to picking McKenna up and taking her out for lunch. Oh, no, you know, we know that's really important to you. So I think sometimes we can take our power back just by the words we use without feeling like we're saying no.
Also, Tanya, I think it's important to note that there's a different dynamic in a relationship between a realtor and a client when it's moved to a more personal level rather than a transactional level. So when they're in your personal world and they know you, they're going to say, sure, no problem. Can we go in the afternoon? And you're likely going to go, yeah, that'll work, right? Like it'll just get moved versus it's this time or die. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I only knew being a realtor through you because Greg and I had another realtor, and then we went to a show suite Josh was working at, and he's like, don't buy this. And we left, and I'm like, why in God's name would he tell us not to buy this? What is wrong with him? And then my husband, who's probably the smart one, is like, well, financially, like if we don't buy in Poco, we can buy a townhouse in Maple Ridge. And I was like, no, like I want this condo in Port Coquitlam. And he's like, but if we have kids and then we're gonna have to sell. And I remember thinking Josh was like such an ass for that. But then when we met Josh and he was like, well, here's why I would suggest you buy in Foxfields and you can get brand new. And it started this amazing real estate relationship, but then also a really good friend relationship. So I think I never had any other experience other than how Josh did his business. So maybe I was a little bit lucky with that that's what I knew. I didn't know the other side.
I was the lucky one.
But you also learned to say no. Like, I think you set boundaries.
Yeah, instead of saying, sorry, if I show you this house, I'm going to miss my Taekwondo tournament, I just invite you to my tournament and you'd come watch me fight.
And then I'd feed you lasagna because you looked like you were starving.
Yes, and I was. John, I want to talk about redefining the role for a second, because like you, I have had quite a, I don't know, scarred career of leading teams, being an individual lone wolf in the field like most realtors, then starting off this thing called a team, following this model like Jason talked about, where I'm the lead listing agent and I had buyer's agents, to having my teams implode, having Bastion being my number one buyer's agent go down the hall and become a better realtor than me and kick ass and have to go through high degrees of embarrassment and shame personally, right? And yet at the same time, still have to love Bastion. And I tell you, that was hard. It's a hard time for me. And I had to grow up and mature, and I had to get over myself. And I genuinely love Matt Bastion, and I'm grateful for his success. No question. That's only one experience. I've had many others like that where team members have come and gone, and I've thought I had the secret sauce for success. And turns out, you know, like Jay said, I had to decide, was I a good leader or not? And I realized I might be a good ideal, like people look at me as a leader, but when it comes to leading people, I was really shitty. I wasn't very good at it at all. I had these standards that were so high that I thought everyone also lived by. And if they didn't, if they stepped outside of my standard, that's pretty mean. And I didn't know that about myself until I started leading people. And that was painful. I didn't like that look at myself. I never even knew that existed. So I had to redefine who I am on this team. And if you look at the dynamic of my team right now, I don't run the show. That's Aaron's job. He is way better at it than I am. I suck at it, I admit it, but there's things that I'm really good at, and we all know it. And so we keep me in the sweet spot. We keep me where the light is. And John, I'm curious for you, because I know you've gone and done some things in your career. I want to hear from you around that.
You know, it's interesting, Josh, because one of the things I keep reminding myself of is be careful what you build. You might not like it. But it's true, right? And we are constantly growing, we're constantly evolving and recognizing as we go through even the different phases of life that, you know what I was good at this period of time, I'm no longer good at that because my interests or my cumulative skill set and aptitudes have now shifted, and I've got more ability in a different area. And it certainly, you know, as they come and they go, and different things grow and implode, to use your word, or, you know, explode for different situations in my world sometimes, you know, it's all right. And I used to beat the hell out of myself constantly. Oh my God, you spent so much time doing this and so much time doing that. But it's now about, okay, so what did you take out of it in terms of growth, and what success did you contribute to others? And I look at the people that I've worked with in those different organizations as I've built, you know, I've built a couple of teams now and then imploded them at different points along the way. And, you know, my wife and I run our own business now. I run coaching in the back, and it's a fantastic environment. Do I want to go back and build another team? Yeah, but do I want to do it differently? Completely. But the reasons behind it have changed through the years as well. It used to be about, you know, that success in terms of, you know, oh wow, I could buy the next boat, and I could buy the bigger house with the larger driveway and all these other things. I prefer to take time and get up with my boys in the morning and go to bed with them at night, and, you know, do different things like that. And the role has certainly redefined itself. And I think the biggest thing for me is just becoming okay with where I'm at and who I am. And then looking at what I've contributed along the way. So.
Yeah, which is much, by the way. Thank you for the
Thank you.
contributions you make to our company. I appreciate
Well, it all started with you, Joshua.
it. I don't know what to say to that. Thank you.
I'll never forget it, man. I'm in my 12th year now, and I'll never forget the day, Josh. And this is when you chastise yourself. I'm not good at leadership. I'm not good at that kind of thing. I'll tell you that there's a post the other day, actually. It was the CEO of Apex Mountain in the interior, and he was out shoveling. I'm not sure if anybody else saw it, but he was out shoveling the steps to his office. And it was posted because here's the CEO of this organization. He's out shoveling the steps to the office so that his people, when they come into work that day, have a clear path. And they were saying how, you know, this is leadership by example. And there I was. I got into real estate, and I was told, you need to make phone calls. You know, this is the system. Make phone calls, get appointments. And I was doing that. I got an appointment, and I quickly realized, oh shit, now what? And I remember distinctly walking around the office, and you were the only one there. And I walked into your office and said, Josh, you got a second? You know, which you hear more than a few seconds a day. And I said, you know, I was told I need to get an appointment. I got an appointment, and now what do? I had nothing. I had no listing appointment, never been on a listing appointment, never seen a listing appointment, didn't know how to do a list. I had no idea. And you sat me down, and we did a CMA together, and you told me how to do it. I didn't get that listing, but I got that buyer out of it. So we took the buyer after the listing appointment because he recognized that I was just a better dude. But it's that kind of thing that, you know, don't chastise yourself. You do a great job in leadership. It's boots on the ground. It's doing things like this. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch gears just for a sec. Andy, I'm going to ask you a question, if you don't mind. You're like the Beatles' fifth member, although you're technically the fourth one for this panel, if that's okay. You've been a realtor for a long time. I've known you for as long as Keller's been around. And then Teresa joined, and now you two are running along at a really fast clip. And then you've had your own experiences in real estate that would look a lot like a cardiogram, much like mine. And now I'm curious, you joined a team, but you were a team. You and your wife were a unit, but you joined a team. How instrumental has Mike Huber been in this next phase of your career? I know him to be a generous individual who shares incredible amounts of knowledge, but how did that come to be? Why did that come to be? And how's it working out?
Yeah. we're kind of like a yin and yang. I'm kind of at the point in my life, like I'm getting up there. A lot of people don't know how old I am. I'm 55. I want to be done sooner than later. That's my new goal. And certainly Mike is an extremely hard worker. I don't know how else to put it other than he just doesn't stop. And he's got young kids. I had young kids. My kids are all grown up. I missed a lot of time with my kids because I was always focused on succeeding, whatever that meant to me at the time. So the new partnership's been great. You know, Mike has taught me a lot that I didn't know. You know, we've been doing it the same amount of time, about 17 years, both of us. And just consistency is what he's taught me more than anything. And I still struggle with that, which, you know, having him around keeps me accountable. And I think for Mike, I'm always on him to, you know, slow down and be careful of what we were talking about earlier, just falling into the woes of always working and not having me time or family time or whatever it may be. So it's been good for both of us, I think. I went through some stuff a couple of years ago with my health where I really didn't know what I was going to do. I actually thought about quitting real estate because it was real estate that was kind of killing me. I had some pretty serious stuff. I had a kidney shut down. I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. So, and from that, Mike was going through a transition with his old partnership. He knew that I was, you know, not knowing what to do. And I was looking for somebody I could join where I could still learn, but we could have a balance together of a life balance. And that's definitely what Mike's looking for as well, as a life work balance. So we've been kind of good together because I'm kind of towards slowing down. He's still going at a high rate, but we rub off on each other. So it's been really good. It's been really good. It's certainly not easy having partnerships, and we still have our battles. Yeah, I like to play more than he does. But again, it's been a good fit so far. Yeah, we've been 2 years today.
2 years today?
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Thanks.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing. That was rather impromptu of me to ask you to do that, but thank you. I appreciate it. Let's talk about, I want to transition because Andy just said he had, sorry, Andy, was it your kidneys?
Yeah, I had a kidney completely shut down, and they didn't find any reason for it other than stress.
Okay. Yeah. And stress. And truth be told, what there's a common theme here for all of us to take note of is that we're in probably one of the most, well, let me just say, we're in a very high stress job. I won't compare it to others because I don't have any others to compare it to. But this job does not lack for stress. Let me just say that. And on your drive for success, what I certainly failed to understand was how important self-care was along the way. In fact, self-care, schmelf-care, like there's no point. I'm just going to hunker down and make sure I got a commission check coming so I can pay for gas. Self-care didn't enter my mind. It's not that I didn't know about exercising, but my thought, you know, in the beginning of my career was exercise to have a six-pack rather than what benefit it would bring my body or my health. And Andy, you're a great example. Tanya, you're an example. I'm certainly an example in certain areas. If we really uncover, you're going to start to recognize after a certain period of time, it will be different for all of you, but I would venture to say once you're in that 10-year range of the industry and you've been working hard, your body's going to start fighting back at you if you haven't started taking care of it. And if you haven't started making self-care or exercise or proper sleep an extremely important component of your life. And if you break this fundamental law, don't worry, nature will show you. It'll give you a kidney problem. It'll give you cancer. It'll end your relationship. It'll give you something you just aren't prepared for, and you're probably going to rack it up to, maybe I just need some prescription drugs. And I'm going to say bullshit. I think you need to take a really good look at yourself right now, whether you're 1 year in this industry or you're 10 years, and go, am I taking care of myself? Have I broken that rule, or am I in alignment? And if you've been taking care of yourself, you're not going to suffer this issue. If
you're modeling it for your kids, right? So we teach our kids by how we are, right? They follow that. So for me, when I left the team, I really took stock of like where I was, and I was really, it was right when COVID started. It was like beginning of March. I was overweight. I was feeling lousy. I hated my routine. I was nitpicking at Greg for no fault of his own. It was because I was just not happy. And so I just kind of thought, how would I want my kids to be in this situation? So it's hard for me to look at McKenna because she's got special needs. It's just all about her. So she looks after herself very well. But I look at Sydney and she's going into her second year of nursing and she works and she is this overachiever and she's very much like me. I see it every day. And I think this is what I'm modeling for her. So am I teaching her that it's okay that I don't take time for myself, that I don't take time to make sure I'm making better food choices or walking? So when COVID started, I started walking every day with my beast and I lost 35 pounds during COVID. And it wasn't an intentional, like I'm going to lose 35 pounds. I think I was just so miserable. And that is a reflection so much when our body starts to say, you don't care, then we don't care. And you start to make those decisions and they start to snowball. And for me, losing my brother, like I already cried to everybody, but that was a really big one for me. He was making some really unhealthy choices. And it was because he was so miserable. So I had to take stock. And what am I teaching my kids? Am I teaching them that that's okay, that money is more important than my health? Money is more important than me attending my kids' high school graduation? Is it more important than me missing that Sunday walk around the park that I promised them? So I think for those that have kids, you're modeling how they should be as adults, and don't think that they don't see it, because I have grown kids now and I see so much of my personality trait in them. And I'm like, oh, they got that from me. And thank goodness right now, Jack's still, we're figuring it out. He's 15. But so far, I'm seeing things that I'm really happy with.
Yeah, that's awesome, Tanya.
One other thing to that, Josh, if you wouldn't mind. I found it funny when I went through that, the thing that can help you get out of that. And for some people, it can be completely different. Like for me now, it can be as much as like a 20-minute walk with my dogs where I leave my phone at home. Like, it's so liberating to not have to have that stupid phone ringing all the time, or like shutting the phone off for an hour at dinner and just whatever happens. Like, and I know we're in that business, but it's very addictive to like start picking that up and not taking that break. And it can be 15 minutes. It can be, maybe just waking up and having your coffee, looking outside for 15 minutes, but you got to find something. You got to find something that takes you away if you're feeling that stress or that anxiety or that pressure of this business.
I check out Colin Thornton's cooking posts.
So do
I
I.
don't know why.
Yeah.
It's a guilty pleasure, Colin. Sorry. I do all
Yeah.
that.
But it doesn't have to be something big. Like for some people, maybe it's going to see your mom. Like I got an elderly mom. My dad passed this year. I go see her for an hour. I don't take my phone. And it's just nice to get away. And it keeps me level for some reason, just not having
Andy,
bombarded by real estate.
I don't bring a phone into my room. I have a spot out in the living room where my phone chargers are. So all the chargers sit there and they just don't come into the room, period, ever. And when I'm studying for whatever it is I'm studying for, creating a content for a course, I keep the phone away from me so that I'm not tempted, because I'm tempted. I have zero willpower. I am weak when it comes to checking the phone and finding out who needs me, what email is calling my name, and or what text. So I leave these away from me so I don't have the distraction, so that I can, and like you just said, it's crazy. I didn't know this is new to me too, by the way. I didn't realize how good I was gonna feel by doing that. Like it feels really freaking good to just not to ignore the phone and forget it's there.
I find it extremely stressful to leave the phone, but in feeling that, I'm like, I'm doing something wrong if I can't leave my phone for an hour.
Yes, I can relate to that. But I'm gonna ask another question here, Kemper. I'd like to know for you on the topic of self-care. There's a couple of people in here. Colin's talking about he hits the gym once a day, or did you just do it one day only? Yeah, I think unmute yourself, Colin. Or just type it.
There we go. Got it figured out. No, one day I got to hit the gym.
Oh, one day you've got to hit the gym. Got it. Got it. Yeah, yeah. The old one day.
That's good
Yes.
for that one.
Awesome. Thanks, Buck. I appreciate that contribution. I appreciate it. Andrea is involved in Courses of a Miracle. Sorry, I've said that wrong. The Course in Miracles. And that's a study group where she finds solace and peace. And I imagine that's restorative and brings balance to you. And I feel like that's got to be self-care, Andrea. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can speak on that. A few years ago, I think 2 years ago, I completely hit a point in my life where I was so deeply unhappy. You know, I'm 15 years, I think, in the business now. So I've been like 13 years. And like everyone talks about, you have your ups and downs and whatever goes on in your life. And I would turn to unhealthy things to try to maybe take some pain away, which added to more pain. And I finally hit a point where I was spiritually done. I was so unhappy in life. So I actually had to take probably a year, and I would say it was burnout too, and a lot of things. I took a full year to myself, and I had to really fix my life from inside out. Like, and it wasn't even about money because I made poor choices with money. Like I was just at a terrible state. And from the outside, people probably wouldn't know, you know, Facebook.
Guaranteed they wouldn't know, Andrew. Guaranteed they would not.
Well, Facebook and Instagram, you know, you got to really just look at that lightly. It sort of paints one picture of a person's life because we always want to try to post what's positive that's going on in our life. But what truly makes us human is life isn't perfect. And we're going to go through stuff because that's part of being human. And that whole guilt and shame and never feeling good enough or like you're doing enough or people are better than you. And I think we're in a tough business because on one hand, like you said, Josh, you want to love your partners, but we've been told it's so competitive when really there's enough business for everybody out there. There's the law of abundance. And then sometimes the more success you get, it gets to be lonely because everyone's jealous of you and they're talking behind your back and saying mean things that you're not good enough, you don't deserve to be here. And it's just sometimes our business can be nasty. And after a while, honestly, it got to me and I was done. 2 years ago, I personally wasn't sure I could ever do this business ever again. So I had to take a step back, and now I'm getting a bit emotional myself, and really evaluate where I was at and and also I had ego. I also dealt with my own little ego too. That would drive a lot of my decisions and thinking. So this is where the whole spiritual program for me came in. And a lot of what Tanya was saying, you know, I had to really redefine my life, what my purpose is. You know, I really want to have kids. And unfortunately, I'm in the later stage of my life trying, and there's been challenges in that. And through it all, though, I have found so much peace in this spiritual program that I have found. And it's not based on any one religion, but it's something that helps me realize that we are all one. We're all connected. What you wish for another, you're wishing for yourself. And it really is a program all about moving from fear to love. And that's where you can relax in the business, knowing God or your higher power or whatever it means to you, no matter what, is going to take care of you. So if you need to take that month off or week off or some time off, it's about relaxing into that. Like when I think about after 50, I'm still here. I've always managed to get through it, even if it's been slower or busier, or, I mean, I had a phenomenal year this year and probably the best year I've ever had, because like Tanya said, it's no longer, I don't look at Instagram and wonder what everyone else is doing. I don't care if I make medallion or not. I don't look at my numbers. All I care about now is how can I be of service? How can I be here to best help that person? I'm not afraid to knock on a door anymore because I know I'm coming from not a fearful place of, oh, I need to knock on this door because I don't know how I'm going to pay a bill next month. And not that I ever did that, but there's been those times where it can be tough, but there's a different way of, it's not, I know the whole thing is not about the money, but it really isn't about the money for me in the last year and a bit. And yet I've made more money than I ever have in my whole career. And my whole purpose started to shift when I basically was down to my rock bottom and I knew I had to change my life. And it all really started from learning to love myself more through all of it and knowing that I'm a good person and I'm just doing like everybody the best we can out there and sending everybody in our industry lots of love, and hoping to receive that back, and being there to truly be a service. When I knock on that door, how can I truly help that person, and getting really invested in coming from that helpful place. And I really have a love for people, and I get really happy when, you know, you can make that sale and those clients can move on to go to be with their grandchildren, or they can make that shift they need to make. And that's really fulfilling. So oftentimes I think, man, you know, do I want that 9-to-5 job? And I've tried a million times to think, what else can I do out there in this world? But I keep coming back to this business because ultimately I do love it. And when it's flowing and you're helping people, it can be a lot of fun and really rewarding. And I have found a lot of balance. My big thing is having my business partner. We've been solid together for a long time, and he's amazing. We work well together. We bring the balance. So being able to have a support system in this business, I would say, is important, whether it's an assistant or a partner. And, you know, I found my happiness again, even though life is still having its challenges, especially now trying to have a baby's bringing on new challenges. But thank God I have the spiritual program or foundation to turn to keep my faith and keep hope and going.
I genuinely appreciate it.
And if anyone's interested, I'm starting a new study group in January, and it's all about moving from fear to love.
Mr. Kemp?
Gosh,
All right, so.
self-care.
Never mind balance, forget that, but because we know that doesn't actually exist. Counterbalance does, but self-care in your life, what does that look like for you? Is it even important? First of all, let me just say, you could just say that, you know, self-care doesn't matter to you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So.
Well, but I think it does, but I'll go back to being just okay with who I am and what we're doing. I get from the old days where you'd look at, you know, doing deals and cashing checks and that was rewarding. And don't get me wrong, it still is. Absolutely. It's rewarding. And it definitely, there's ego still there. It never goes away. It's just how you manage it and control it. But, you know, some of the greatest pleasure in terms of my own self-care, the greatest pleasures I get are spending time with my family. And I'm fortunate that I've been through the growth of a child and seen what I've missed. My daughter's 18. She graduated last year. We're fortunate enough. We've got a space. She lives with us still, but you know, we don't see her nearly as much as we did. But I've got also at the other side of that, an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old boy, and I get to do it again. And when my daughter was young, I traveled a lot. I was on the road 3 out of 4 weeks running corporate. And, you know, Andy's comments about being addicted to my phone. I work for Rogers Communications, and thank you for all of you who funded me while I was working for them. But I, you know, sitting in boardroom meetings with people from Facebook and people from Motorola and all these different companies, and they're talking about how they're working to create addictive product. You know, and when we build with Rogers, we build the first month we put Facebook into an app, we build $1 million in usage charges. This is back in 2008, I guess, 2009. We built $1 million just on people's stress that they wanted to be on Facebook and be on their phone all the time. And today, my world's changed with my 4-year-old and my 8-year-old boy. I love to get in the truck with my wife in the afternoon when it's about 2 o'clock. We'll get in the truck or we'll walk down the hill and we'll go pick them up at school. And having them come running out of the school to me, because to Tanya's point, you know, at 15, 16, 17, they get to those ages. Not only do they not need you anymore, quite often they don't want you anymore. And it's a fleeting, you know, love is forever in that family sphere for us. But we don't always like each other, and we recognize that and accept it. But doing it different with my boys and really truly enjoying it. So, you know, self-care could be going to the gym. It could be doing these different things. I don't have the energy I used to have, and just spending time with my boys. I love getting in a room and a virtual room and playing video games with them. To interact with a 4-year-old in a virtual world with things that he can't do yet in his normal life, but we can do it together. The 3 or the 4 of us. It's fantastic time. So that's really where I'm getting it.
The metaverse.
The metaverse. Yeah, no.
You know, it's like success though, right, John? Hey, self-care is definitely, it's an evolving concept of what does it mean to me is different than what it means to you, to Andrea, to Andy, Tanya, and Jay. Self-care is, but self-care doesn't really, it doesn't, there's no definition. There's no universal definition. It's what fills your bucket back up and restores your batteries. It's what gives you joy. And however whatever word you use, you just can't minimize its importance in our life. It's very important. It's integral if we're doing this career for the long haul. You really want to avoid health issues, in my opinion.
Yeah, doing any career, right? You know, a lot of us come from different worlds. We've done other careers, and we still come across people who come into our industry, and unfortunately, because the bar to entry into our industry is pretty easy to overcome, they come in with these expectations that it's really easy and there's a deal tree out back, and they pick them off, and they struggle, and they'll struggle for 2 years, and supporting those people through that struggle. And as they move off into these other, you know, branches, and you see them, the connections we've made through these years. If you scroll through your Meta page, or your Instagram or your LinkedIn or whatever, and you see these people that came into your real estate career as realtors, and now they're doing something else, and how they're doing it and measuring and managing those stresses. And it doesn't change. It never goes away. But are you okay with who you are? When you wake up and you go back to bed, you know, are you okay with what you've achieved that day and how you've carried yourself? Yeah.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's for you. I'm curious now, because you lived a pretty, like, it. Here's an outsider's perspective on my take on your life. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah.
You lived a good life. You lived in, like, let's talk about the dwelling aspect only. You lived in an incredible property. It was always clean. It was neat. It was easy to maintain. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And then you moved to the farm. And yet I hear you say that there's aspects of the job that are really important to you. You're not wanting to give up. And you don't even live as close to the office as you once did. So you've got some other challenges that are in your life that didn't exist a few months ago. How are you still managing to maintain your definition of success and sanity, if you will, and self-care? What does that mean? Like, how do you balance all of that?
I think the timing of this particular event is funny, because my self-care is probably lacking, potentially at an all-time low, I would say. And I mean that in a way that it's from more of a rest perspective. So if I look back, it's obvious, like I've shared, I'm in this kind of funny transformation period right now. So we have always been very much more, my wife and I have been more experience-based people. We don't have like fancy cars. And, you know, I think humbly, just with kind of the volume of the business that I've grown, we always were really comfortable just having like a nice townhome and really no kind of financial fixed pressure. So potentially underutilizing the whole kind of investment side and income, asset accumulation and so forth. And then so during a majority of my career, I was actually quite okay with the fact of the reality that there's just certain months where it's really busy and certain months where it wasn't. And in my previous partnership, we worked to like basically from, you know, March to June, it was just like go time. And then up into and including this year, I've always taken a full month off every summer. So 10 straight summers. And I typically take a full month off in December, January, and then I sprinkle like holidays in. And so I get, like at a surface level, I get a lot of holidays. Like I probably take 10 weeks a year off, maybe 12, but the times that I'm working, it's just full work. So I can always navigate that. And when I'm really busy, I don't forget that the free time's ahead. And that system has always really worked for me. And then, like, for example, we would typically go away a lot. So again, tying in just having a lower cost of living. So often we would go on 1 or 2 3-week, international holidays a year. And one thing proudly that I could say is that the last 6 times I've done that, I've actually left my phone at home, like no phone, no iPad, nothing. So that's a really nerve-wracking thing to do. And, my team knows that if they need to reach me, Leanne's got a phone, but like it's funny because you go from like go, and we all been there when you're about to go on holidays. It's like probably the most stressful, 3 a.m. nights that you're gonna work. And all of a sudden you get to the airport, and even just the thought of like looking at your phone to go on Instagram or just looking at like YouTube or whatever, like you don't have a phone. So it just forces you to all of a sudden go through this really uncomfortable few days. And then I would just be basically gift myself like 3 weeks of just absolute freedom, and come back recharged. And then I would be ready for the next, showtime. But that is not very easy. That system that kind of worked for me over time, it's become more apparent. It's very hard on my wife, and my kids are 5 and 1 this week. So so that whole idea of like dad just disappearing, it didn't matter so much when Harvey was like 1-year-old, but now he's so hyper aware of, I mean, it certainly did matter and impact him to some degree, but it's just not doable now. So with everything and the lack of ability to travel, that kind of created this situation where, because my cost of living was low, we were saving a lot of money. And then we kind of stumbled on a property this spring. And for people who know me, I'm absolutely useless with my hands. Like I can't fix anything. I literally, Annie always makes fun of me. Like I never actually started a lawnmower in my life, not even once as a kid with helping my dad. I never physically started a lawnmower until 2 months ago. So
And sorry, Dave, with
literally
that, all you needed was a key and you pressed a button.
yeah, so I kind of bypassed the
You never pulled on a
I've never pulled.
I
So
can train you, Jay.
but-
I can train you, Jay.
yeah, so I got a lot of trainers here. But
I
so
sharpen the blades for you too.
so kind of what happened is we stumbled on a property, and we weren't really, I never ever would have thought I would be in a situation where I'd, have the desire or interest to have an acreage, but it just something in the, I think subconsciously, like something in my heart just felt like it was the right thing to do. And I couldn't really explain it or touch on it. We went and saw it. Leanne thought I was dragging her out for no reason at all. And then, a few days passed, and we were fortunate to see the property before it was on the market. And it's like, I can't stop thinking about that place. I honestly just feel like I could live there with the kids, and, we can't really travel right now. So now I've like skipped, townhome to home to, like, I've just gone from townhome straight to acreage. And the funny thing is, you kind of touch on this, is for me, there's no way for everything to be perfect there all the time. So that's like a total kind of funny challenge for me, but it is a blessing because it's forcing me just to kind of let go of just things that, and just, not be so uptight. Like we renovated our last place, and our Harvey's like playing hockey in the kitchen, right? So it's like, don't touch this. And I never grew up that way. I never actually understood why I was being that way, or why, and I certainly don't want to be that way. So now we have this, beautiful home, but it's lived in, and it's got a lot of character. So it's just really cool because we can like shit kick it, and it just doesn't matter, right? So now like my joy is more around like reaching a place where I can actually let go of a lot of things that I'm just holding on to that aren't like serving me, I guess. So so and with that, it's just now identifying that I can't just disappear for 3 months and sell 40 houses and then come back for a month. So I'm struggling with that, and it's like a really tough thing. So I recently set out and kind of decided like I need to look at doing just a couple, like enforcing myself to do a couple things ongoing. So I actually signed up for like an art school, which I start next week. And
Nice.
so I'm going to take on drawing and stuff like that. And these are just like, I kind of said, okay, well, what did I love to do when I was a kid? And honestly, I need to work out really bad, but I kind of perceive based on my patterns that if I go to like Orange Theory or go to the gym, I'll just go full on, I'll probably go twice a day and then burn out on that. So what for me self-care looks like is actually just the opposite. It's more just about like freeing my mind of the kind of the scattered thoughts for periods of time, and just finding rest in that way, and so that's kind of the journey that I guess I'm on right now, is just finding ways to do things of rest.
How liberating is it to recognize this all in, all out pattern of your, and then just submit to it and go, you know what, I'm going to stop fighting this thing and I'm going to recognize it, honor it, and then lean in. How do you do?
Well, I think like it's a double-edged sword. It's like when you live your life, when you're younger and you have these patterns that exist, but you're just moving forward and you don't take the time to really observe yourself and why you do things. And so you're basically living kind of ignorant to why you have certain traits or whatever. And so
You can you're living someone else's life.
yeah, like you create a character, right? So you kind of, I mean, I don't want to pull like a Jim Carrey here, but it's kind of true. Like you create a character based on your experiences, but also who you think you're supposed to be because of what other people expect from you. And you could say you don't, but you kind of do. And that's because you're immersed in people's egos. And nowadays, obviously technology makes what everyone else around you is doing and the best parts of their life always available to you to compare yourself to, right? So for me, we had a bit of a pretty fundamental health scare when our son was born, and my wife became quite sick for a period of time, probably 2 years. So I invested a lot of time at that time, despite like being really grinding out the business side to work on myself. And I could really relate to a lot of the stuff that Andrea was talking about and fear and love and all that. But what I realized is like I gained an appreciation and understanding of why I would do certain things and why I was the way I was. But then that knowledge is really empowering. But so you kind of set yourself free and move on a track where you can still focus more on what you need for yourself. But then if you don't honor what you've learned, because now you're aware of those things, it can be a trap. Because if you do things that didn't service yourself or make you happy or destructive or whatever it is, escaping, you didn't know why you did it, so you didn't know any better, right? So once you gain that knowledge, if you don't actually take the steps and actions to change the way you operate, then it can compound and create a lot of guilt because you know better at that point, right? So
it won't compound and create a lot of guilt. It'll show up in the form of a health issue. So
yeah, for sure. So where I'm at is like I kind of know what I need to do, but old habits are tough to break and kind of to free yourself of that loop, right? So I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but
wouldn't you agree? Like you might now know what you do. You got this sort of conscious awareness, right? But yet the actual leap to do the things you know you need to do on a regular basis is far harder than just understanding it. At least you made it to the point of awareness, but doing them way harder.
Yeah, and like I guess if I look at like the big shift in kind of my home life situation, it's maybe my way of saying, hey, like subconsciously, like if I take that step instead of all these kind of, like I joke about how I've never started a lawnmower, it's like I actually fundamentally believe that I'm not able to do those things, and I shy away from anything that I'm not good at. I know that, like, so even when I was a kid I was like that. So I know humbly that I'm good at selling real estate. So maybe perhaps it's like, if that's not servicing me or bringing me as much joy as it used to, then if I make a fixed obligation to this kind of property and having this home for my children, then it will force me to kind of do what I ultimately really want to do, that I'm kind of scared to do, and which is to just live like in more of a environment where I can like spend time on the yard and all those things that I've like told myself I don't even know how to do. And so now I'm kind of in that zone where I have this appreciation for it and I'm really enjoying it. But I also get really frustrated because I'm not good at certain things and I'm trying to figure out how to use the tools, and I'm too like, I'm okay to be vulnerable, but I also don't, when I'm not good at something, it makes me really frustrated. So because I spent my life shying away from it, right? So it's like now I've got this fixed decision I've made to fix myself and bring myself happiness, but I'm in the zone where I'm still trying to discover myself that way.
I love it.
But
That's my honest self right there.
Yeah, no, I
Jason.
love it. Thank you. Andrea's dying to say something, so dive in.
Sorry.
Oh, me?
Yeah, I believe you're going to say something. Was that
Oh, a little while. I'm just trying to remember. I think you had said something that made me think about all of this. And Josh, you had said it too. I think what's hard about this business is it's hard to not be able to define yourself. I'm a realtor and this is what I do. And when you are having success and business is flowing, it's easy to feel good about yourself. But when the business maybe just it ebbs and flows and it's not there, it's how do you remain your level of I'm still good enough, regardless of whether or not how busy business is. So I think that's the biggest takeaway I've learned now is how to love myself through it all. And in going back to that, I was just thinking what Jason's talking about, where if there's something that you're not good at and getting frustrated, well, it can just take some practice. You just got to remember, maybe you weren't initially good at the real estate, but if you just try and keep trying, eventually you'll get good at something. Like I was never good at door knocking, but you just have to keep trying. But I think it's just making sure that I had a real tough time that I was real estate defined my self-esteem. So now I don't allow real estate to define it. I define what my self-esteem is. And that's how am I being of service? How am I helping others? I just go back to that foundation of spiritual practice. And that's been helpful. I can't really remember what I was going to say, but I hope that makes some sense.
No, it makes sense. It's like, I think for me, it's like the opposite, like the things that, with real, like I always felt like there's no way I could do any other job. Like the things that are required to succeed in this business, those are actually, I don't want to sound the wrong way, but like those are natural to me. So it's not like it's a hard business and I work my ass off and I have lots of challenge and stress. But it's not like when you talk about door knocking, like those are things that, like, fortunately that was just a perfect mesh for where my comfort was. And that's why I obviously had lots of ups and downs, but was able to just go forward. Whereas like, it's like the uncomfort is actually the other side, which is just like, whatever, just doing something fun or whatever. Cause it's like, I don't, like some people are averse to pressure and stress and then just want to avoid that and live in like a space of freedom and self, just easygoing. It's like, I'm like the total reverse of that. Right. So now it's like, because work's so tolling and like, it's super fulfilling, but I'm kind of just like, okay, how do I incorporate a sense, like rediscover that other side, right? So
Well,
that's like how I feel pressure is like,
Jason, your 5-year-old's a boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with Jackson, we were building this house. He was probably 8 and he loved Googling how to do stuff. And we were really lucky that our builder allowed Jack to be there like every day when we were there. And now like he's learned how to change oils in cars and he knows how to rotate tires and he knows how to run the lawnmower. I ran over our water sprinkler system and he said, you're no longer allowed to touch it. But use that experience of you not knowing to teach Harvey. Yeah. And you'll just see from his growth, like, hey, daddy doesn't know how to do that. Let's Google that and let's see if we can figure out how to do it together. And I really watch, I'm not a good teacher either, but my husband is really good, especially with Jack around the house. And he's taught like our daughter how to change her oil. And I don't know how to do it. I would have to call him. But Jack loves those learning experiences. So sometimes the things that we think are our weaknesses are actually a time that we could use to teach our kids, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense for sure.
Right. So like now Jackson's 15. Greg was away for a couple of weeks. Jack had the lawnmower out. He knew how to empty the septic, like all the things that I have no idea. He's up on the roof cleaning out the gutter eaves. I'm having a heart attack because he's on the roof. But all the things that he has learned how to do because he's mirroring and matching Greg. And it's funny because sometimes he'll even say, oh, Dad, I was watching this Google video on whatever it was around the skylights and it said we should do this in preparing for winter. And I'm just like, holy, but they're getting that from us. So I think now I can look back at it because my kids are older and I really noticed that. So
Yeah.
Look at that as like an experience. Like if you get chickens, I just know they bring rats, but that's an experience that you can do that as teaching. Like Harvey, we're going to build a coop and Dad has no idea because you're teaching him it's okay not to know.
Yeah, it makes sense. My wife's always on me because she's pushing me to just kind of enjoy the ride. And
but it's tough when you're an A personality.
Well, yeah, because I'm always living in this a decade, I'm living in a space where it's like, how do you fit everything in one day? So like, if I start to try to take on something and it's unsuccessful, it's like in my mind, my gut instinct is like, oh, that's just lost time. Like, how I can't get that time back. Like because the time that I take away from work is like, so it's not abundant, right? So, but then it's like, who cares? Like,
But when your kids learn to walk, they fall how many times, right?
yeah, for sure.
Potty training, they're peeing all over the floor.
I want to interrupt for 1 sec. I want, because we're running down the short
yeah.
of this
Yeah, no worries.
this panel, and I've got some questions that you guys can talk about teaching how to do a lawnmower
Sure.
through a YouTube. Send them a text on YouTube on that one. I am really curious because you're talking about something, Jay, and I want to hear you all your thoughts on paradigms and beliefs. Paradigm is your view of the world, and belief systems often are. We're a product of some will argue that we're a product of our environment, that our beliefs were often instilled in us by others around us and those very close to us. And I think that there's a lot of relevance to that. The belief that I might be afraid of a snake, for example, could have been from the time when my mom freaked out when she saw a snake in the backyard. But Jay, you could have had the same experience when that snake was in your yard and your mom picked it up, recognized it as a harmless snake, and you don't have a freaky feeling about snakes. These are beliefs about, something big like that. But in real estate, we have a belief around success, especially at that 10-year mark, when you've pedaled to the metal for a long period of time, sacrificed your boundaries, sacrificed your personal self-care. And now here you are at a stage where you're redefining potentially some aspects of who this identity, who you identify as, and how you want to actually shape the next part of your life. And I'm just curious, like Kemper, on your side, are there any paradigms that you've needed to shift? Is there any beliefs that you're looking at that you're like, I need to smash this? And are you having any challenges coming up against changing that belief or that paradigm? Is that something that's real for you?
People talk about the stress of COVID. And, we're coming up on 2 years under COVID, the change in our worlds. And for me, COVID actually shifted, to use your word, it shifted my paradigm. It really, because we spent basically 18 months full time with our kids. And that time for me allowed me to shift it from go, grow, bigger, faster, to, yeah, we're doing it. We'll get there. And just to use Jay's piece with, what his wife's hammering on him, just enjoy the ride, enjoy the experience, and getting there. That's part of that process. So it really has, as I've grown older and as I've reached, 12 years in the business now, we're enjoying the ride instead of pushing. So yeah, it's changed.
John, would you say also the more you embrace enjoying the ride, the harder it is to go back to the way you were with pedal to the metal? Do you find that a challenge at all?
It certainly is. I was that typical guy where I would go, Jay's talking about when he was working with Rob and that time of year, you'd go from March till June. It's, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then literally you go and you flick the switch off, and I would go to sleep, for 2 or 3 days. I'd just disappear. And then I'd do this ramp up again. I'd work like a crazy mad fiend, and then I'd just disappear. I don't have that kind of intensity anymore. And I think it certainly could still exist inside me if I wanted to pull it out. But I think the desire to have that, and the recognition that I used to give myself for, great job, Johnny, you worked your ass off for 3 weeks in a row. You killed yourself. Oh, great work. Go to sleep for 3 days. That has disappeared now. And I take more pleasure in, as I say, spending time with my kids, and doing things that I enjoy. My mom used to say to me all the time, work, Johnny, all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy. And growing up teaching my kids, as you figure out what you want to do, at the end of the day, if you could say, I play, and then ... fill in the blank, Wouldn't that be wonderful if what you did in your career later on was, I play anything. I play at real estate. I play professional hockey. I whatever it is, but it's just a different measuring stick. It's changed.
Yeah. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Tanya, when you started real estate, you didn't have 3 kids for starters. That I do know, but
Yeah, I did.
you had 3 right out of the gates?
Yeah, because I've only been in real estate. This is going in my 9th year and Jack's 15.
I stand corrected. So let me ask you a couple questions about, you were also young. You still are. Careful. Might have got that one wrong. Sorry. You're still young. And you've got 3 kids and you're in real estate. You're starting a brand new career and you are facing a much different set of challenges. Were you still running the house? Were you still responsible for getting kids to and from school? Did you have to do groceries? Did you have to make dinner, lunches, breakfast? Like, where was your life at there?
Well, I am very fortunate that I have the most amazing partner ever. I can't say enough about him. If dishwasher needs to be emptied, he does it. He works from home. I hate to say it, but I've forgotten to pick Jack up from school on a few occasions. So I would say that when people say that you have to have a 50-50 relationship, we are definitely an 80-80 relationship. We both do 80%. I am married to my best friend, which after 27 years is an amazing thing to say. And I would be lost if I wasn't with him. I hired a cleaner this last year, which as an OCD freak, it was really, really hard for me. But I was tired of Sunday nagging everybody, today's cleaning day, we got to clean. So that was a big thing that I did. And then I have always taught my kids how to be pretty self-reliant. So Jackson makes 1 meal a week. He's responsible for. My kids are really self-reliant. So I don't have to nag at them. Pick up your stuff. I've just never had that issue. I did have to find balance that when I was on family time, it was family time and I wasn't answering calls. But I think now I'm so happy with the clients that I have that I can just say to them, hey, like tomorrow I'm taking off. We're doing our big anniversary celebration. I'm not going to be available. And they're like, oh my God, how many years is it? And what are you guys doing? And so the expectation is like, what do you mean you're not available? The expectation is let us be excited for you. So I can honestly say that I'm the happiest I've ever been. And for people who are new agents, it's a really tough gig. And you're going to walk in the office and you're going to see people driving fancy cars and they're wearing 3-piece suits. John Kemp, you always look good. But you see a certain image and you think, wow, like that's what I want to be. But I can tell you that sometimes I'm doing deals in my pajama bottoms in my office. But I'm the happiest when I'm out walking the dog on the dike and we start chatting about our rescue dogs and next thing I know, they want to buy a house. And I've just discovered that when you find what your niche is, and people say that, what's your niche? But when you find what your niche is, you're genuinely happy.
Can I add to that, Josh, for a sec?
Yes, please. And thank you.
Just, starting when I got into the business, I was fortunate. I got connected with Andrea Jacques and I'd set a goal that I wanted to be in this sphere and she had connections in that sphere and she helped me along. And one of the things she said that the market will choose you. The business will choose you. And through the years, I've been fortunate to have this business that's been sort of by my design, but by the market's design at the same time. And I had a conversation that was very interesting. And, I wear suits. I like suits. I feel good in suits. And that's my thing. And when I built my first team, I sat down with one of my guys and we were doing some coaching and he said, I feel like a fraud. I'm like, what? It was very eye-opening, but he was trying to wear suits. And you know what, be you and be happy with what you are. And the market will choose you as long as you're going in a direction that makes you satisfied and you're working your business the way that you want to do it. That success, the way you want to measure your success, you can achieve it. It's about just doing the work and going for it. But just be you and be happy doing it. It'll come if you're willing to work at it. You can work full throttle or you can take your foot off the gas and do it at your pace. And that's part of what I coach now is what kind of life do you want and what kind of business do you want? Because coming out of that corporate world, it was, You need to do this, 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 and this. And real estate's completely different than that. I'll never forget, I'm walking into a listing presentation literally wearing a three-piece suit. And Matt Bastian, who you mentioned earlier, was coming out of negotiating a deal with his clients in the same development, wearing flip-flops and a pair of shorts. And I thought, wow, this is really a dichotomy in terms of, he's doing business that way and his people love him and my people are loving the way I'm doing business, and we're both succeeding, where the corporate world tells you that that's not how it's supposed to be. And my parents told me that's not how it's supposed to be. But it's a total lie. It's a farce. You build life the way you want to do it and go for it. Be good to people, have fun.
Yeah, don't you think the new slogan should be, instead of dress for success, it should be dress for comfort? Like, be comfortable, right?
Whatever makes you comfortable. I feel great when I put on a suit, but I said to my wife today, and I'll be honest with everybody on this call, I haven't put on a suit on in probably 6 months. Because there was a phase I didn't want to wear a suit. I used to wear ties every day. I was wearing a tie, and I can't be bothered. I don't think I could even remember how to tie a tie right now if I tried. Whether or not that's senility or just experience, I'm not sure, but yeah, dress for who you want to be, your comfort, both physically and psychologically.
Part of me did wonder if you were wearing swim trunks under that table there.
I got jeans on today.
Yeah.
Stand up. Don't make them stand up.
John, can I just add to that? That was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And just if anyone's new here, one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard at a seminar, and I still believe in this to this day, you are you, and that is your superpower. Like, we are all super individual, and there's not one single person like us. We're all unique. So we are meant as souls on this planet to be here to attract certain experiences and people, and we're meant to help those ones. Like John was saying, it's funny you said that. You don't find your market will find you. And it's true that it does happen that way, because we are ultimately law of attraction. So by being it or being a certain way, like, there's nothing wrong with, like what you said, John, wearing that suit if you want to attract that type of clientele. And Tanya, I'm with you. I have a very happy business this year because a lot of my clients are the exact same way. I had to take some time off for personal reasons to work on, my personal life for a little while. Every single client was so understanding, didn't even call me for a month. Don't worry, I'll list next month. And it doesn't matter, I'll wait for you. Like, that's the type of client I've attracted. So again, it's all within. We're creating our outer world, and it all starts from what you want inside of you. We can create anything, but it all starts from within. So if I'm learning that if your outer world isn't exactly how you want it to be, then you have to look within and say, okay, well, the only person I'm in charge of changing is myself. And what do I want? How do I want my life to look? And what do I need to do on the inside to make that outer world better?
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Andrea, beautifully said. Your superpower is you being you. Is that how you phrased it?
Yeah, your superpowers is you, because nobody else can be you, and the right clients that are meant for you. And another thing I've learned in the Course of Miracles is I only want what's truly meant for me. So if a situation isn't working, or a client, you don't get that listing, well, guess what? That's okay. It wasn't truly meant for you, because if it's truly meant for you, it will be. So you actually never have to worry in life, because you're always exactly where you need to be at every given moment in your life.
Andrea, my ex Andrea, she and I, we would have this saying when we were married, if it feels like we're swimming upstream, turn around and go with the river. And so we applied that everywhere where, it's like when someone says, hey, let's get together for a coffee. And you try and go for coffee, but that doesn't work. Then you actually set it, then it gets canceled. Then you set it again, and that gets canceled, and it gets set again. And you're like, man, I'm swimming upstream. I'm going to just let go of trying to set anything. And when we found anyway, when we started flowing with that river, that life just was better. And ironically, it was the very phrase we used that helped us end our relationship in a way that we love each other deeply and more than when we were in. We felt like we were swimming upstream in our relationship, and we looked at each other and said, are we swimming up a river here? And we smiled and laughed and said yes. And then we said, well, let's just go with the current. So we high-fived and separated in that moment and planned it out, and now have a deeper love and affection for each other, because we're right where we need to be.
Totally. And that's the whole thing. We don't know the bigger picture or the reasons why things happen. And especially when it comes to getting business or losing a client or not wondering why that house didn't work for that client. Well, what if the best house for them is right around the corner? So it's sort of a fine balance of a little bit of surrender and being in flow and just sort of having that trust that it's all working for the greater good.
We're gonna go and hear from all of the three of you right now. We're 5 minutes out from 1 o'clock. And I would like to just hear what's going on inside you right now with respect to what we've just talked about over the last two hours, your shares, the things you've learned, what struck you, what's resonating inside you right now. And I'd like to start with Tanya, the one who brought us into the deep end of the pool of this webinar, the deepest we've ever gone.
Sorry.
Emotions. So thank you. Let's start with you.
Well, when you called me and asked me to be part of this, I'm like, why? Like, I don't get it. I just me, like, I don't post stuff on Facebook. I just kind of am just goofy me. And I said to my husband after I got off the call, I'm like, I don't really get like why. And then I thought, I had such a pivot this last 2 years. And I've always been a happy person. I've always been the person who finds the good in things, but I am the happiest I've ever been. And I'm so grateful to Keller Williams. And I know that sounds so funny when people talk about it's just a brokerage, because I've met the most amazing, incredible people. And I ran into Andrea actually in Port Moody. My husband and I were on a date and she's like, oh, meet up with us after, like we're going to go. And we couldn't because we had to get home, but it's true people. And it's through things like this where you get nuggets of information. Like I ran into the office, I never go in, and I got to have a nice chat with Colin. And sometimes it feels like a very lonely industry because especially during COVID where everybody's working at home. But I put something on the KW Cafe, a question that I had, and next thing I know, Omid called me and he's like, hey, like, what is your thoughts and what is this? And I never feel alone being with Keller Williams. And so for that, I just want to say how grateful I am to everybody. I can reach out to absolutely anybody on my phone at any time and ask somebody a question, and they're grateful to answer it. And I think that I try to have a life of abundance. And if I don't make any money next year, our family will be fine. And I think one of the most powerful, those of you who are old KW, I had put a thing about McKenna's wheelchair breaking.
Yes.
And we couldn't get a repair. And we've never been struggling financially, but we certainly didn't have $30,000 to just go buy her a new chair. And one of our agents in our office reached out and said, how much is the chair? I want to buy it. And I'm not going to get emotional, I promise. But that was so powerful because it wasn't that they put it on Facebook. Oh, I want to buy the disabled child a new chair. It was done out of pure love. And I think real estate, we've been so beat up in the news and the industry lately that people forget the amazing, wonderful things we do. And so if you're a new agent, focus on the amazing, wonderful things you can do in your community. Because like I fostered a dog, she's laying under my desk, and to her, we're her whole world, right? But it was just one dog I saved. So try to find that one dog to save or that one kind word, because you never know when you go into the office and you see someone who's super successful and you think, oh, I better not say hi because who am I? And you're saying hi to them makes their entire day. So just keep being kind, keep being you, keep loving yourself.
Love it. Love it, Tanya. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dryberg, let's hear from you.
Truthfully, I wasn't expecting this to be such a personal discussion, but it's been really fun. So I appreciate the courage it takes for people to talk about what they're going through, and it's really nice to be able to share, I guess, some of my experiences as well. And I really think that what resonates with me is just that in hearing everyone chat about your health and all that, it's funny because it is a competitive business and it can be lonely, but it's like this few hours kind of, it's like, oh wow, everyone's going through the same shit that I'm going through, and I mean, we all know it, but you don't have a lot of time to recognize that. So And I really feel very strongly about just understanding kind of the environment that you need to thrive in, and kind of building it outward. So even when we were talking about the suits and everything, like I'm definitely someone to not wear suits. And yeah, it's funny because occasionally people comment that I'm really casual or wear hats and stuff like that, but it hasn't impacted me because people see and interact with you and they trust you if you're in the zone, and that's the only way to be there is to be comfortable in your own skin. So and yeah, so I mean, it's all positive. It's been cool.
Beautiful, Jim. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Mr. Camp, let's finish off with you, sir.
Sure. I think the thing that we've all experienced and shared today is, for me, is that it's a journey, and to Jay's point, we're all struggling with it. We're all struggling with different changes and growths, and it's a journey. Colonel Sanders started KFC at what, 62? Ray Kroc started McDonald's restaurants at 56 years old, and Elon Musk is the wealthiest guy on the planet, but he started as one of the youngest guys. And it is a journey. You cannot measure yourself by others. You have to measure yourself by who you are and where you're at, and becoming happy with yourself, which has been a major theme through today. Being happy and content with where you are and what you're achieving and doing today, and looking at the micro things, the things you do every day that lead to the macro, the life that you've created by design. That really sticks with me, and is continuing to be how I drive to live my business and grow my life with my family. And I work with my wife, which so many people told me, oh my God, I could never work with my wife. It has been the greatest thing. And somebody said earlier, that I couldn't do it without my partner, and so blessed and so lucky to have that, and that we've developed that together. And we just continue to grow and do our thing. I'm not 50 yet, so I'm going to beat Ray Kroc.
When you turn 50 again, by the way, sorry?
In June. I won't be here.
We get there before you, but Andy's beat us all. So
Yeah, he has. Yeah, we're not the first, and we're definitely not going to be the last to go through it, right? But be happy with where you're at, and be happy with what you're doing. You can only do your best, and nobody wakes up in the morning going, I can't wait to fuck it all up. Yeah. We're all just doing our best. So go for it.
Isn't that probably the best way to end it right there? No one wakes up in the morning saying, I can't wait to F it all up. That's just not what we do. I'm good. Listen, John, Jason, Tanya, Andy, Andrea, and those of you that were all of you that were here, thank you from the bottom of my heart for making this I think this was by far the most impactful and special webinar that I've had the privilege of being on. And you guys were incredible. All of your shares, all of your vulnerabilities, the fact that you just shared so freaking openly, I have no doubt is touching the hearts of agents that were in there listening today, that they're going, oh, thank God I'm not the only one. Like I can guarantee that is actually happening right now. Thank you, Andy, for giving me permission to just relax a little bit and just, enjoy things like a simple walk, right? Or whatever it is, John, like to hop in the truck. These are things, and Jay, thank God I'm not the only one that doesn't know how to start a lawnmower. It's not a skill we need anyways, right? Tanya shared so deeply and so vulnerably. It's the likes of which I've not seen in this webinar, and I'm grateful for it, Tanya. I want to thank you all. This is the last one of the year, and we just went out with a bang. From the bottom of my heart, all of you, I'm greatly appreciative and grateful for all of you. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. Cheers, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so
care.
much, Josh. Great.
Guys.
Thank you.